Welcome everybody to this show.
Wild Hogs!
He's really, really rad.
He met Proop's dad.
You'll know him from Greece.
Please welcome the wickedly talented one and only Adele Dazeem.
It's Proop and Murph's Travoltathon.
Bitch. It's kind of a pathetic film about these insecure boomers who kind of like, the like kind of my bitch wife kind of boomers. They want to reclaim their youth, so they hop on their Harley Davidsons and they go on a road trip across middle America.
Kind of the moral of the film is it's okay to be pathetic.
I would say it's the best film I've seen.
Rewind like a second. What was that?
Nah, it was bollocks. It wasn't very enjoyable.
It was bollocks. Yeah. It's got a lot of the same vibes as, Will Ferrell movies. Reminds me of Watson and Crick. So Wild Hogs. You've got Paul Allen as the main guy. And
Tim Allen.
Oh yeah, Tim Allen. My mistake. He's really kind of the epitome of 90s comedy. Like Ben Stiller in all of his films, every single film he's in. It's of a genre. I don't know how to define that genre. I don't know the word for it, but it's
comedy.
Well, it's a subgenre of comedy, but it's a subgenre of comedy that's not funny. It's like a children's film. It really is. It feels like it's written for children, but instead of children, it's written for middle-aged men, really. It's a lot like Speed Kills, in which the characters that are portrayed in this film are the target audience.
And I think the four main characters all sort of represent four different kinds of fears that a man has about his own masculinity. Tim Allen's sort of fallen into a sad life where he's become a family man. But Martin Lawrence he's sort of in fear of his wife. He's like a beta male cuck. And then we've got John Travolta, who used to have it all and he's lost it all. He's at the very bottom. He's at the low of the low. And then we've got William H. Macy's character, who's just kind of socially awkward and he accidentally watches porn in a coffee shop. I don't know any of the characters' names, except John Travolta was called Woody.
Surely one of them was called Chuck, right? There's got to be a Chuck in there. Hello. What are you doing?
I do need to come in here for a minute.
Oh, you're joking.
I'm not. I need to cut a bit of wood.
Right, enjoy.
Hey, Murph.
Shopping.
Hello.
Ethan, cable.
Where were we?
We were talking about the film Wild Hogs.
Ah, yes, plot synopsis. Yeah, you begin.
John Travolta is like, oh no, I've got no money. All I've got left is my 3 pals. I'm going to convince them to come on a road trip with me because we're all sort of like a kind of little bicycle kind of gang where we kind of bicycle around Cincinnati.
As they are on the road, various hijinks happens. The guy from Goodfellas is the leader of the real bikers, right? So these guys are kind of the phony wannabe bikers. They're wild hogs, but that's just a patch that the guy's wife made. How lame. So they have that classic scene where they walk into the saloon and the music stops and everyone looks at them. The good fella himself comes along.
Good normal fellas.
He does his classic laugh. He steals the nerd Beck Jones's bike.
You got a deal. Seriously?
And then Travolta's like, I'm not having this, so I'm going to get it back. So he does, and then he cuts all their petrol pumps. As he's driving back, the whole thing explodes. So they end up in this really nice village where everyone's very nice and gay. The bikers come along, they have a big face-off, and then Goodfellas' dad comes in at the end, and he's like, come on, guys, being a biker's about freedom.
This guy's like a Deus Ex Machina that just comes in, and he's like, everyone please stop fighting.
4 guys, stand off. 50 bikers.
I wanted to say something funny to her, but all I could think of was black jokes.
This movie got one genuine laugh out of me, because most of the jokes were predictable, I could see them coming. But there was this one at the end, it threw me for a loop. It threw me for a proop. They're going to fight against these biker guys. And one of them's this massive guy, and one of them's this, smaller Asian fellow. And then they're like, oh, can we swap?
I'll take you.
And then the Asian guy, rips off his shirt, and he's really ripped underneath. And it's like this really racist. He does all the I don't know how to describe it, karate sounds, you know what I mean?
I didn't find it like that out of the blue, to to take me off guard. It was just kind of something else that happened, really.
Yeah.
There were no genuine funny moments in it.
There were lots that just had me completely baffled. Like, the first one that comes to mind is these two police officers, and they're twins, and one of them has one ear, and they kind of slag him off.
They
and I was like,
stand on one side of him.
wait, so the joke is that he's got one ear? Why are they twins?
I remember there being a lot of jokes that were just a bit weird and didn't make that much sense.
There was the scene where they've gone camping, they blew up the tents, so they're all just kind of lying down on the grass next to each other.
The gay copper.
And the gay cop comes over, right? And they've got those really cringe jokes where they kind of talk about things that happened, but they do it really vaguely.
It's Woody's fault for riding us so hard yesterday.
Because Martin Lawrence was blowing up his tent, he was like, oh, I was blowing for hours. And then the gay cop comes over and he's like, oh, I wish I was bloody shagging you guys. And then they run off because, ooh, a gay man.
It is 4 counts of indecent exposure, 2 counts of lewd, lascivious behavior, and 1 count of pure jealousy.
It was awful.
And then he comes up later on. There's a scene where they're all nude in a, what's the word, like a lagoon kind of thing.
Yeah, just a lake will do.
I just know the gay cop is going to come back in this scene, and lo and behold, the gay cop comes back and he's like, oh, hello, nude men.
He swims down underwater and looks directly up below their cock and bollocks, and then they all run away. Yeah, all the scenes with the gay cop have made me wince.
I feel like gay cop, even though
gay cop, bad
it
cop.
seems... even though he comes out of the blue, he does tie into the theme of the movie quite well.
Bigotry.
No, just the men's insecurities thing, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah,
it's like an overly gay man who's interested in like a straight man is like another straight man's fear. Sequel to White Man's Burden, Straight Man's Fear. You know what I mean? Like that sort of
I know what you mean.
Insecurity, the suppressed homophobia in these 4 guys. And especially in John Travolta, because William H. Macy, he's got no filter. He's kind of autistic. And they share a bike at one point, and John Travolta's like, oh, if you ever come that close to me again, I'll fucking knock you out, you gay man.
And if you ever lay your head on my back again when you're riding, bitch, I'll throw you in the traffic.
His character is supposed to be a cunt, isn't it? Like, he's just some lawyer. His wife leaves him and takes all of his money in alimony. He just ends up being bitter and resentful, and he was probably a prick in the first place because he's a lawyer. I mean, you don't get very many good of them, apart from, of course, Peter Rigby, the gold standard.
To see our clients sat on their bikes has been a real special experience for me.
He wants to do this trip as a way of escaping all of his problems, but he still manages to find just as many problems with his close friends because he's just a cunt. And Paul Allen's also just... sorry, Tim Roth. No, Tim Allen.
Paul Roth.
Yeah. Paul Roth is more of like suppressed version of John Travolta, where John Travolta's got like this bravado and he's just not afraid to be a dick to people. Tim Allen's more of them, like you can tell he's angry behind his eyes and trying to smile. Yeah, that's kind of the character dynamics. None of them are likable at all. This film's just a shit show.
It's dated.
Yeah, dated, very dated.
Not even just like the comedy, but like the way that William H. Macy's computer works. It looks like this sort of 80s rendition of what a computer would look like in the future, and it's got this like waveform who's like a digital assistant, and he's just sat there talking to it at the top of his lungs in a bloody coffee shop, and then granny porn comes up.
It was animal porn, which was weird because it just started playing farmyard noises, so to everyone else in the coffee shop there's not really any porn going on. It was really just his frantic reaction that made it seem that way.
Well, I'm sure that barnyard animal orgasms would sound different from just a barnyard animal regular speaking.
If I was to hear a barnyard animal's orgasm, I would probably first assume someone's been hurt, because you know, like when foxes have sex, they sound like they're in pain.
You know what's meant to be good is dolphin sex. Have you heard about the scientific experiment they did where they put vaginal juice from a dolphin's vagina onto a monkey's penis, and the monkey orgasmed so hard that he had a heart attack and died?
You know, I think Caleb's like milked a dolphin before. Shout out Caleb Thornber, by the way.
The film felt kind of disjointed. It's sort of in 2 parts. Road trip and then bikey wars, you know?
Yeah, the whole arc of the film ramps up again right in the middle. It goes like a McDonald's sign instead of your classic... I don't know, like the film graph, the Mr. Martin Scorsese's masterclass YouTube skippable advert.
Damn it, how could this have happened?
Graph,
It's on screen right now.
That was just my hand.
Well, here it is.
That's just your hand.
Tim Allen is getting dad cucked. At the start, Paul Roth says to his son, "Do you want to toss around a football?" And he says no, which is the reverse of Speed Kills.
Jewish party.
A few minutes later, he gets a text and he's like, "Oh, can I go around to this guy's house and play football with his dad?"
Well, yeah, I mean, Stu's dad is awesome. He can totally dunk.
And he's like, "Why didn't you want to play football with me?" And he's like, "Because I fucking hate you, Paul Roth." You're a...
Paul Rudd.
I hate you,
Paul Rudd. He's like, I'm Tim Allen, for fuck's sake. I'm your dad. Play football.
From Toy Story. Oh, that's what I wanted to say as well. It's Tim Allen who's Buzz in Toy Story, and John Travolta's character is called Woody. It would be quite funny to take out some of the clips out of context where Tim Allen's like, "Oh, Woody, don't forget to pack your condoms or something," you know.
We'll just do that of you saying that.
"Oh, Woody, don't forget to pack your condoms."
I mean, his performance in it, stock standard.
Average.
His character wasn't good. There was a bit of a kind of Lucky Numbers vibe to the bit after he explodes the barn, and he's kind of like frantically trying to get out of a situation where he's committed a crime. That was quite Lucky Numbers, and he played it quite similarly.
It's the open road, man. It's riding free. That's the rush.
But most of the time, he stands back and is like with his arms folded and like tries to be a tough guy. Overall, he didn't really bring that much to the table. If it had been any other actor of like kind of a similar build, because Travolta does have that muscly ripped guy build.
Bullshit.
He's got the swagger, is what I mean. And
he's large, not in a fat way, but large in kind of just like a normally large kind of large way.
Yeah, he's got broad shoulders and he's got that broad mandible that really shines in Face Off in comparison to Nick Cage's slender chin. I haven't seen any shirtless pictures of him, believe it or not, so I wouldn't know like if he is like kind of like rips like an actual pit bull. It's not as if he doesn't fit the role or anything. It's just the role itself is lame. It's just there's not much to it. It's not got very fragrance, the ambiance, le grand temps, le ponce. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't feel like the emphasis here is on the characters, but rather on the actors. I feel like this movie was made and they had in mind, we're going to pick out these actors who are famous and we don't need to give a shit about characters because they're going to be famous enough that they'll get butts in seats.
It does seem like they wrote the whole movie around the fact, oh, we've got the budget to pay for these actors and these are the kind of actors who aren't going to say no to a really terrible movie. With John Travolta, I don't think it's the fact he needed the money at all because his entire career has been this kind of movie, hasn't it? It really does beg the question, is this really what he thinks is quality? Is this really his kind of style of comedy? Or does he just kind of subjugate himself to the lowest of the low out of some form of shame or modesty or maybe even a sense of irony?
I don't know. I thought I knew how Travolta thought. I thought he was maybe taking these roles for the money. But after seeing him in interviews and seeing him in the documentary, I feel like he just sees the good in every film. You know what I mean? I think he's looking at Wild Hogs and he's thinking about the film that it could be. He's looking at it and he's thinking, oh wow, it's a film for the pathetic old lonely men and I'm going to be a bastion of ineptitude and I'm going to take up this role in Wild Hogs.
I mean, I really love this movie. And Fred Durst is a fabulous director.
I don't think John Travolta knows good movies. I don't think he's seen a good movie.
I genuinely think John Travolta is autistic at this point because the fact that he's in such denial that it even exists and the fact that his son ended up with it, and it can be like, it's like genetic, isn't it? I really would not be surprised if he does have some form of autism.
Have you seen that clip of him? He was on one of the late night Jimmys. I don't know if it was Fallon or Kimmel. He sort of interrupts the guy mid-sentence, and he's like, hey, don't you think we look the same?
Do you guys think that Jimmy and I look alike?
And they look nothing alike. Like,
you know,
You can never play with a woman's chin too much.
kind of like how we were talking about Tom Cruise in the Scientology episode. I don't think he's putting on an act or anything. He's just kind of lost the plot. When your mind is filled with all these L. Ron Hubbard philosophies and science fiction concepts, you start to lose grip on what's real and what's not, which is why the two of them are kind of exaggerated versions of their former selves.
Exaggerated virgins.
I wouldn't be surprised if John Travolta hadn't had sex. I know he's got kids.
What are you talking about? He's got kids for one, and he's Danny Zuko for two. I know a guy who he has done with, so like he's kind of my dad.
Oh yeah,
so,
oh yeah.
Tom Cruise seems much more just kind of like he's on speed, whereas Travolta seems a bit more kind of like he's got those kind of social quirks and like the way he presents himself and the way he talks. It just comes across as something a bit autistic to me. You know, because there's so many just head-scratching decisions that the guy makes throughout his career. Some kind of mental handicap kind of explains that in ways that trying to stick it down to like irony or manipulation from Scientology doesn't quite encompass it all.
He's kind of like a different breed of person. He's not smart, he's not dumb, he's not autistic.
There's only one John Travolta.
And also, I feel like we need to be nicer to him so we can get him on the show for episode 50 and interview him.
Exactly. We might have burnt our bridges by putting them allegations in the intros.
I think we should just start the series from scratch, give every movie a 10 out of 10, butter Travolta up, just rub butter on his bald, greasy head, and change our priorities to focus on getting him on the show.
Yeah, I mean, that should really be the goal of this show. It's not really about the films, it's about getting Travolta to come round, have a beer with my dad once again.
It wasn't taking these old man characters as completely serious. It wasn't saying, we're old, but you should still take us seriously because we can ride bikes. Like, it had bits where they were constantly stopping to piss and shit on the side of the road. It was still sort of taking the piss out of the main characters a little bit.
Not in a funny way, though. Like, if I wanted to watch a guy piss on the side of the road, I'd just go to Haslingden.
If I wanted to watch a guy piss on the side of the road, I'd watch Kasim Mushtaq's little cousin do it on Google Earth.
Yeah, a bit of context for this, by the way. On Google Earth, where it's like the picture of the street view, it's just his cousin having a piss on the curb.
You didn't need the context for that. That's pretty much exactly what I just said. Kasim Mushtaq's cousin pissed on the side of the road. Or a bit of context for that. Kasim Mushtaq's cousin pissed on the side of the road. During the middle of the movie, my laptop froze, and it was on the frame where they were all nude in the water, and William H. Macy does a nosedive, and there's like 2 or 3 frames where his bare ass is just showing up out of the water, and it froze on that.
So that was Wild Hogs. Shit movie. 0 out of 10.
0?
There just wasn't any good stuff, and there was just a lot of bad stuff. It was just a 0, wasn't it?
For me to have to give something a 0, it's going to have to be completely no merit to it whatsoever. Just sat there, just waiting for it to finish. And for this...
That's how I felt, though.
That's fair enough, then. But for me, it was just kind of a nothing thing. I'm going to give it a 2. I've not given a 0 yet. I'm still saving that 0.
Your scores always tend towards the midpoint, and mine always tends towards the extremes. You see, the way I see it is, this is the film where if it wasn't for John Travolta being in it, if someone had it on in a room, I'd get up and leave.
Oh wait, are we going to give Travolta money for this, or what?
He's not getting any of my money from this. I'm considering asking for some back.
I'd give him a threepence. Because it's a funny name.
I like Thrupney Bit more than Threepence.
What, do you want to give him a Thrupney Bit?
Yeah, I'll toss him a Thrupney Bit.
So that was Wild Hogs. Right, Murph. Proof.
Yeah, Murph, yeah, what?
It's my turn to choose the next movie. I kind of want to do The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3. Because this is a remake of like a 70s movie, and I watched the 70s movie like 2 weeks ago, and I think it would be interesting if I'm going in with the perspective of having seen the original, and you're going in with the perspective of it being a new film.
Good choice, good normal choice. So yeah, that's been Ethan Proops and Harris Murphy talking about Wild Hogs. Goodbye.
Travolta, Speed.